second.
Oh, one of these got to go mute, huh?
Yeah, I got that. Oh, cool. Okay.
Wait a second. Do you hear echo?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Sorry, we're
saying.
just figuring this out. This is our first Instagram joint live. Turn your volume all the way down on your phone.
Done.
Okay.
What about now?
I don't hear an echo, do you?
No, I do not.
Okay, I think we got it.
Oh, snap.
Oh, maybe a little bit, actually.
I'm out here on the Tizoo. I'm glad that, there's 3 people watching on Instagram, but
Okay.
so we are being watched right now. So let's keep it professional. All right.
I still
Can you
hear a
hear me loud
little
and
bit of
clear?
echo, though. And I can't tell if it's coming from my phone or... Talk again?
Can you hear me?
Oh, it's coming from me.
Can you hear me?
I mute this completely. We're
I
figuring
don't
it
hear
out.
echo on my end.
Okay, cool. I think
So
we should be good then.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're live on the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube, all kinds of stuff here. So hello, everybody who's on here. Basically, what we're doing today, I'm just gonna be the host of the show now. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Hannah. I've worked with Harry for like over a year now as his website designer, integrator, all these kinds of things. And for those who don't know Harry, he is a therapist, a nocturnal therapist. He is a guide to help people really figure out how to live authentically and how to embody authenticity is his mission, among other things. And we'll get into that. He is based in Louisiana, and I am in British Columbia, Canada. So that's kind of the intro. And what we want to do today, what we want to do with this show is really just have like a casual conversation, just to give everybody some context. Like I said, I've worked with Harry on his course and his online stuff for over a year, and I think over the last few months I've really started to actually understand what it is that he's talking about. Yeah. It's taken a little bit. So we've realized that, I knew from the beginning that he had a lot of wisdom to impart and a lot of, things to share with people, but bringing it into like a casual conversation with context and asking questions, I really think I will get the most out of it, as well as anyone who is watching along. So, therapist guru, yes. Wisdom personified is a comment we got on Instagram here, and that's probably the best way to put it. But sometimes his wisdom takes some, as I like to say, dumbing down. Not that anyone, not that to insinuate that of anyone. It's just that it's high level. Are we allowed to swear? Here?
What's that?
I said, are we allowed to swear on here? I was going to say it's some high level shit.
Oh, yeah, we can say that. I mean, you can say that. I got to play it a little bit more PG-like, but you can say whatever you want.
Cool. Just the S word. We won't drop any F-bombs on here.
No F-bombs. None.
Okay, so yeah, let's just kind of dive into it. And this is, like I said, we're on our the School of Outliers Instagram page, as well as the YouTube and the Instagram. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Eventually, we'll probably do these just in our private, it's a public Facebook group, but in our Authentic Entrepreneurship group, because I think the topics will get a little bit more specific, and for people who want to join on Fridays, awesome. But today we're doing it for everyone, because this is our first last minute winging it sort of fun experiment. Good times.
As we say, anything we're doing is worth doing poorly. Now I don't think we're doing it poorly, but I'm saying we got to get acclimated in this space. We got to get comfortable. We're just dipping our toe in here.
There's like 2 cameras going on here. We got lots of technology. So we're just, everyone can give us a little bit of grace that we're figuring it out. So let's dive into it. Today I want to talk to you specifically, and Instagram looks like it's having some loading issues. So I don't know if that's on your end.
Dang.
Just make sure that's working.
Yeah, that's sort of kind of important, isn't it? I'm doing it now. I might need to open my door. Let me open my door. Okay. Isn't that crazy? I got to open up a damn door. Okay.
All right. I'm still seeing some loading
ever since
here.
Hurricane Ida, we've been having these internet issues.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, y'all.
Does that look like it's working on your end on Instagram?
Well, it looks like I'm a little bit frozen, but it looks like it's trying to come to it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna pay attention to it. So it's all good.
Okay, so topic today that I thought was important to talk about, and that's been kind of a sticking point in my life, something that I've struggled with for a long time, is the idea and concept of letting go, and and why humans tend to have such a hard time with that. So maybe we can start with that like bigger question, and then I can think of some examples of situations. Oh, there we go. We're gonna do a new one,
I guess.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, y'all.
So they just tell more followers to come on in.
Get on in here.
So.
Okay, it looks like that's sort of working. All right, but that's okay. We got the other rooms on the go here. So.
Yeah, forget about it. Let's get it. Insta Life gonna have to get it next time. We had to get the replay, or maybe I don't know. Hopefully it works out.
We'll figure it out. This was a trial situation. Okay, so my first question for you is just in general, why do humans have such a hard time letting go of things?
Okay, so first off, I'm not giving any therapeutic advice here. I'm not functioning as a therapist. If you hear any advice, consider it bad advice. I am not giving any advice on here. So bring it down some more. What do you mean? Why can't we let go?
Yeah. So what is it about humans and our just like how we function and work and think of things that we tend to latch on to whether it's like ideas or things like that, or experiences that we've had, and why is it so hard to let go of those things?
I understand what you're saying, but to make it a little bit more sincere, bring it down just a little bit more for me. Make it more personal.
Okay, we'll get into the personal. Okay, let's start with an example. So
I mean, you don't have to use any people. I'm just saying, make it more like
the only way I can think of
situational
examples is to think of myself. So here's a recent one. I've talked to you about this already, casually in one of our meetings. So we are looking to move at some point in the next little while, and I found this house that has all of the things that I want. Checks all the boxes. It has the fruit trees that I want, the number of rooms that I want. It's like, really want it. And so I had this idea that this is like there can't possibly be something better. And I was really just holding on to like, well, what if we could do it? And we're not planning to move literally for another like 4 or 5 months. So logically it doesn't even make sense, but I just had this like idea of like, oh, it would be so amazing, and is there even anything better than that? And I had a very hard time. Eventually I did, but letting go of that idea.
The idea of what though?
Of having that particular house and living there, buying it. Yeah.
And so why was it hard for you to let go of that?
Because I felt like there couldn't be anything better than that. Like this is it, So
you're chasing after what's best.
Yeah, what I think is best.
What you think is best, which what you think is best is based off of your subjective human experience, which means that you choose what you think. And so you can think something is best no matter what it is. It's just a matter of choice.
Yeah.
So, but if you're looking for better, then you'll always be looking for better,
Sure.
So yeah, it's hard to let go of an attachment to a certain physical like manifestation of a thing, such as a house. You know, the house that you saw it, you saw yourself living in it, and for the mind, it's hard for it to tell the difference between something we imagine and what is actually happening in real life. So if you repeatedly imagine yourself to be in that space, you could even go through a grieving process, not even having lived in that space yet.
Okay.
I know that's crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's interesting. It feels kind of like that's what happened because afterwards, after I had to accept the reality that like we're not ready to move at this point, da 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 da. Then yeah, it was really hard. Like it was like, damn, I have a really hard time like letting go of this idea, even though I believe that. So I do believe that things, you know, come at the right time and that things happen for a reason as they're meant to. But I had a really hard time like believing that at that moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's because of that want, and we all have this. I same thing when I see a certain thing. Like I saw us wearing top hats by now, but we're not wearing the top hats right now. We're still grinding it out, you know. And so when we realize that we don't have what we want, we have a decision to make. Either we surrender that want and realize that it's a want and not a need. So either we surrender that want or we continue to suffer by having that want. And of course, you're not going to be happy in a space of happiness if you have what you don't want.
Say that again.
What part?
This is why we're having this conversation. So break that last point down again.
So the wanting.
The wanting, yeah. The attachment.
The attachment.
Yeah.
Yes, the wanting. So the attachment. You attached yourself to a specific physical manifestation. But in this physical reality, things change swiftly and often. And so it's like building a sandcastle on the beach near the water. It changes quickly. And so if we attach as if most certainly this sandcastle will be here and it will be here forever, and I will live in this sandcastle, and then it gets washed away, we grieve because now we can't have what it is that we want. Either we can stay in that place of not having and looking at what it is that we don't have, or we can detach from that, separate from that attachment we made to this physical manifestation of a thing, and move back to choosing and understanding that we can have that same experience in another castle that we build. And it's about the experience and not the physical manifestation itself. It's not about the house itself, but the experience that you intended on having in the house.
Yes.
And so if we can detach the experience from a physical manifestation of a thing, then we can easily change as the physical reality changes, as our physical world changes and situations changes.
Okay. So how can we apply that idea to something like a business? I don't know how many people, like I said, eventually will move this kind of into the entrepreneur group. Also, before we move on, I don't know if Instagram is working at all. So
yeah, it's probably not.
We're gonna just end that one.
Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll, for anyone who is on there, I'll post the link to our other locations, the other several locations that we have that are being recorded.
Yeah.
From Instagram, and we can send people over there to watch the replay.
Yeah.
So we'll just get that
definitely
extra camera out of the way there.
And also, if you are watching this live, know that you can type in questions and it'll pop up.
Yes, exactly. We do want you to ask the question as well, because
so yeah, if you have a question,
but I might run out.
Right now, if it's silly, then we might just laugh and keep it moving. But if you seriously want to know something, like are seeking to dialogue rather, because I'm not giving any therapeutic advice, but seeking to dialogue about a specific topic that's been plaguing your mind regarding like life, then please ask.
Yeah.
But
so okay, basically what you're telling me is that we attach ourselves to the physical manifestation of things, but what we really are looking for is the experience that we're going to have.
Yes.
That makes sense to me because yeah, that's all like totally it. The experience of living in a house, like obviously it doesn't have to be that particular house, but I could see everything that I wanted to do there, you know, pear trees, man. Like I need to have a pear tree. Favorite fruit, it's like it's got cherries, it's got freaking raspberries. Anyways, you know, I love gardening. So yeah, there's all these experiences that I could see myself having there, and that is really what I definitely attach myself to. Now, what about when it comes to like business? Because like I said, I would consider myself an entrepreneur. I'm sure there's also other people out there. And this is something that I've experienced, and I know that other people experience all the time when they do things like launches or like put out a new product or idea, and they get attached to certain outcomes of it. How can we like, you know, this, if you have maybe a sales expectation that you want to meet, and your leads don't come in, like how can we I don't know if the right word is separate ourselves, but like what, I don't want to call it advice, but can you speak to that on like how we can stay not attached to those attachments? How can we detach ourselves from that?
Yeah. So you already know, you and I, any entrepreneur, I believe, struggles with that. You know what I mean? I don't care if the Dalai Lama. Like, I'm pretty sure the Dalai Lama every now and again is like, this is some BS. You know what I mean? Like, did not expect that. But then that's when I go to expectations, you know, which expectations being the greatest source of frustration. And so when I'm, you know, because in that state of whatever we're feeling, disappointment, disarray, disbelief, shock, whatever, the emotion, the emotion, the charge of the emotion is so strong that we get lost in the emotion, and then that drives our thinking, and then we speak from a place of not selfness, or a place that's not self energy, or a place where we're not really representing our values, our true self, you know. And so sometimes we get lost in that, and in that illusion, that has to just sort of kind of just play out, you know, until you can make it back to feel safe enough, because it's really, we're not feeling safe. And so we've been triggered because what we've expected did not happen. And oftentimes when we do an expectation, we are saying this most certainly will happen, and then we spend the money before we even get it. And so when it does not happen, it sends us, we're already in a desperate state, it sends us into a much more severe desperate state. And so we're triggered, we're scared, and then in that fear we lose ourselves and become possessed by one of our emotional protectors that typically come up when we feel like we failed or whatever else. And so in that space of not selfness, we're not going to be acting according to our true value. So once we wake up, once we're able to feel safe, some time has passed, we're able to feel safe again, then we go back and we understand that we placed the expectation there, and then release ourselves from that expectation, knowing that expectations is the greatest source of frustration, that you don't operate out of expectation, you operate out of hope, because it's more pliable. You can move around, you know. Expectation says this most certainly will happen, you know, but hope says that I'm very optimistic and I'm hopeful that this will happen. Like, I'm really desirous of this happening, but I understand that this may not be the case, and I will accept it if that's not the case. But I really prefer this to happen.
Okay. Couple trains of thought there. So, okay. Again, with the attachment. So, like, when you feel, or when I feel, or whoever feels themselves being pulled into that place of, like, I'm disappointed because, you know, this isn't going the way I want to, or these outcomes didn't happen. Would you say it's more of a matter of like letting yourself sit in that, but being aware of it? Or because I feel like there's this misconception out there that like you have to be high vibe all the time, and like it's a huge thing. It's, you know, like keep your frequency high, which like, yes, but that's not life. It's not really how our emotions work. So yeah, is it like, would you say it's a matter of I then just have the awareness that like, okay, I'm feeling disappointment. I can now choose to either sit in this disappointment and then feel sorry for myself and then keep thinking of worst case scenarios and get deeper and deeper into that, or I can just give myself some space. And maybe I need to journal, maybe I just need to take a break, whatever. And then have the awareness to like get out of that. And then how do you kind of raise that?
Ignorance and freedom cannot coexist. And in that space of not selfness, when we're possessed by emotional protectors, it's like we've lost our way in a forest. And so the way that we get out of that is awareness, because again, ignorance and freedom can coexist. So knowledge is clearly the remedy, but self-awareness, how do we get there if we're lost in the forest? Mm-hmm. This is where authenticity is about skillfully living through your values. And so when you live authentically, you already have fail-safe methods. You have planned in your schedule that at 6 p.m. you're going to meditate. And so even if you're in a state of not selfness, when you meditate, that is a form of you returning back to self energy. And so now you're freeing yourself from that illusion. You're like, oh my goodness, I said what I did, what I felt, what did I say? And then that's when you've got to bring in self-compassion, because you have to forgive yourself for not being yourself, but then understand that our shame does not represent who we are, but who we are not. It's in that space of not selfness that we ever look back on in the past and then feel shame because of it. But we got to understand that that place of not selfness is also triggered to this survival mechanism where we feel threatened.
Is meditation the only way to do that? Because I know a lot of people who struggle with that, or feel like it's hard to get into, or they have kids and it's just like, is that the only way, or are there other ways and strategies to bring yourself back?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of strategies, whatever's natural to you, like, mm-hmm. Honestly. So meditation, there's so many different forms of meditation. So there's like thousands of forms of meditation. So more than likely you're going to come up with a meditation in order to, practice getting out of that state, to make sure that you maintain awareness, self-awareness, and stay in self-energy. But there's meditation. Yoga is a form of meditation. And I don't mean like secular yoga. I mean like real yoga, like yoga, like yoga that yogis would approve of, not the yoga that a lot of men go to watch, like not that yoga, like real yoga, yeah. Like that's a form of meditation. Journaling, that's one of the best forms of meditation for me, because I get a chance to filter out my thoughts and then
that's what I find too, is like it's definitely like a filter. Like I can write and I can see when I'm feeling sorry for myself and when I'm in that like poor me mind state. And I have this thing where I'll just like, I'll journal, but then it's like I by the end of the journaling session, I've already like given myself a pep talk while I'm journaling, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's funny how I do that, but I always laugh.
It's you giving the pep talk though comes from your true self, your higher self, which you're returning back to. Yeah. So you're waking up via that meditation, and journaling is one of the best and one of the oldest proven methods of meditating, period, that you can do. So if you love writing, then that would be your form of meditation, combined with other things too, because there's so many other meditations out there, so it really depends on the person. You love foraging, like your eyes light up when it comes down to the thought of foraging. Yeah. You just foraging, that's your form of meditation, Yeah. Now
even just being out like on a nature walk, or like taking some time to be, disconnected. I think that's a huge thing too. Like I definitely need to get we can go into that. It's probably another whole day, but
and I'll say unplugged, not so much disconnected, but unplugged, because you can plug back in, but disconnection, I don't want people to get confused, because disconnection is related to loneliness, which is the experience of disconnected, but I understand what you're saying. I'm just letting people know.
Unplug. Leave the phone, turn it on airplane mode. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, what was my question even before this? So we were talking about entrepreneurs, expectations, what to do when you feel yourself being pulled into that, like disappointment, fear, that kind of stuff. Now, like how much of that comes from fear? Is it all like fear-based?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fear-based. It's always false evidence appearing real. It's always something in this physical reality, this illusion that we forget is no more than sand that then scares us in this place of not selfness, where we're reacting to the physical world as if it has more power than our inner world, which is where the old sages say, if you defeat the enemy within, then the enemy without can do you no harm. All you have to do is regulate this. We try to regulate our external world and try to change that, when in reality, we don't have much control over the physical environment, but we do have control over our internal environment. So that's why we rely on the meditative practices and whatnot, already having that planned and in place, not wait till we in a crisis to go and try to meditate, but we are ready because we understand that we will fall into a place of not selfness, because that is the case for all humans. And so, since you know that that is the case for all humans, you already have your fail-safe plan in place via planned awareness exercises, self-awareness exercises, that just in case you lost, it can bring you right back to your light. And if you're already in the light, it will only enhance and amplify your light.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to like want to go meditate when you're already in a crisis. Like, it's so much easier to just keep spiraling down than to bring yourself out of that. So I know you are very big on plan of approach, having that, you know, those kind of systems in place. Thinking about, you know, again, other people who are entrepreneurs, parents, people with busy lives. Like, how does someone make that work? Is it literally just a matter of like committing to these actions? Like, I don't know. I just see maybe people who are busy like me and always have a lot on their to-do list, prioritizing the to-do list or those things instead of, you know, those times that they need to take care of themselves.
Yeah. So you do it when you don't understand how to do a thing in the spiritual. Again, the physical is a manifestation of spiritual laws, I believe. Again, not giving any, I'm gonna keep on saying that. I'm not giving any therapeutic advice here. I'm only giving bad advice. So don't come here for advice. But the physical is a manifestation of spiritual laws. And so if I don't understand something in the spiritual, I look to the physical to teach me. What do you do when you try to organize your life? You begin to look at stuff that need to be thrown away. So you clear out the clutter.
Yep.
So how do we clear out the clutter mentally and spiritually? Again, it goes back to these meditative exercises, you know. And when you begin to clear out that clutter, now you have clarity, and in that space of clarity, you can see more possibilities. And so it frees up your this very rigid view that this must happen and it must happen this way. It frees it up because now you see all these other different possibilities, and now you can let yourself know that it doesn't exactly have to happen this way. I can have this experience through this way and this way and this way.
There's a million ways that we can't even see, and if we're not aware that those possibilities exist, or we're not even looking for other possibilities, we're just focused on one thing.
Yes, in that state of not selfness, we are our worst enemy, because we are that person that was really hard for us to love, which is that person that we speak to and we dialogue. It's okay to have a difference of opinion, but it's that person who not only has to remain in their opinion, but also becomes angry because you don't agree with them, right? And so, and they are very forceful, and they're continuing to like jab at you, right? It's when we in a space of not selfness, that's how our ego parts, that's how they behave. There is nothing we can say, there's nothing anybody can say that is contrary to that ego part that it is willing to even entertain, because it's a protector part. So it must believe what it believes in order to protect us. It doesn't care about what's true. It cares about what will keep us safe. And if keeping that faulty belief is what it believes will keep us safest, then it's going to maintain that position. You can have a crowd around it shouting something different. It's still going to maintain that position. That's what it's designed to do. That's why we have to return back to a place of self energy or selfness, you know, or back to our authentic self and operate from that place, because that place we can move where we understand that it's the inner world. And so we're choosing from the inner world and just watching the physical world like change and evolve as we change from the inside.
How do we know when our ego is the one that's in control, you know, giving us the those like thoughts and stories and things like that? Like, how do you separate the difference between the two?
For me, is the emotions. It's the emotions. But again, you know, we releasing the course, doing shadow work, you know, and so really unlocking yourself from the ego states, that's what shadow work is about, you know, because these ego states are there because you're afraid of something. Know that when you're locked in the ego state, that you're operating from a space of fear. So usually that looks like chronic aggression, agitation, blaming other people, um, finding ways to distract yourself, such as after complaining about other people, saying, "I'm just so exhausted, I need to go in watch Netflix for the next 12 hours. Like
Yeah, zone
it's
out.
yeah, it's a domino effect, you know.
Yeah. Do you think you could boil it down like simply to be like ego-based stuff feels heavy and your like true self feels light, like light and heavy sort of? So I found that that kind of helps me.
Yeah, yeah,
That's true.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. But even
Yeah.
in the heavy, because the true self deals with the heavy, it is not always light, but the heavy is much lighter in the true self because we accept in that space. We're in a space of acceptance when we're in our true self. And so pain only converts to suffering when we resist. Ergo, that which you resist persists. But when we're in our true self, we don't resist, we accept. And so pain doesn't feel the same whenever you accept it because you understand that it has a purpose, that it's refining something and defining something within you, even if you can't see it right now.
Yeah, but pain sucks and nobody wants to stay in that. So what would you say to that? Like, you know, the people who just don't want to even deal with it.
Sucks to who? You know, that's the question. And then after you say sucks to who, then it's sucks to what part of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Yeah,
does
because my answer would be, you know, well, me. Like, I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to be upset or angry or emotional or whatever.
and then the question would be why not? You know, and then going deeper within that. So if I'm
Uncomfortable.
there you go, comfortable.
Yep.
So is that the experience that you're seeking then? Is it comfort that you seek?
Yeah, probably.
So if you are comfortable and you're seeking comfort, then A, either you're lying to yourself, or B, you need to stop seeking because you have what it is that you're seeking.
Ah.
So if you're still seeking, then and you already have comfort, then it's not comfort that you're seeking.
Ah. How do I figure out what it is that I'm actually looking for?
Shit, that's a good question.
No, does that go into does that go kind of into like the value side of things? Like, you know,
It's for me when you do the meditative work, you know, like journaling. Let's say just sticking on journaling.
mm-hmm.
I journal and I'm writing out my thoughts. I begin to see with clarity what it is that I'm believing that I lack. And once I can identify via that pain, because pain has a way of showing you exactly what it is that you're seeking. Like if I put my hand on a stove, it's my hand gonna let me know immediately that my hand is on a hot stove. Not my elbow, not my toe.
Yeah.
It's gonna be my hand, whatever's touching it. And so when you feel that discomfort, you locate that space. Some people use because the with every thought there's an equal and opposite reaction here in the body, and so there's a reaction here, and so a lot of people will tune into the wisdom of the body, which never lies. So you be
Yeah.
still and allow yourself to feel your body and where the discomfort is at. You know.
I know that there's the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Does that touch on that as a whole, or is it more relevant to actual like medical problems? Sense?
I believe that touches on that as a whole
Okay,
because
cool. Yeah. Are there any
medical.
other books that you can think of that really like go into that that body side of things, like the
Dr.
awareness
Joe
of?
Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural, Dr. Joe Dispenza's The Placebo Effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a slew of books, but I remember those offhand because I was just not talking about him.
Yeah. I've read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, but I think Becoming Supernatural probably touches a little bit more on that as well. I have it. I haven't read it yet.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
yeah, that's something as well that I find challenging to be aware of, like what my body is feeling. I think it takes a lot of practice and awareness.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, women in general, I believe that uh, the culture has dictated that y'all have to suppress y'all's feelings, y'all
Yep.
physical feelings, a lot in order to
Yeah.
operate in a patriarchal society.
Yep.
And so, because believe you me, if men had a cycle, we would have a paid week off every month.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Absolutely.
if I had to give birth, you're gonna put me to sleep the appointment that you tell me that
Yeah.
I'm impregnated, and you wake me up 2 months after I've given birth. I don't want any part of that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so I believe that there's a lot of pressure on women to suppress how their bodies feel in order to continue to compete in a world that has this patriarchal culture. And in doing so, you're practicing whatever you do as a practice, and whatever you practice, you become. And so now women become detached from how their body actually feels and the wisdom of their bodies because they practice suppressing it.
Yeah, I think just to go off on a tangent on that, like we in general, I don't know what everybody else's experiences were like going through school and the education that you get around like your body and your natural cycles and things like that. But that's not something that like, you know, you get the basics. But there are a lot of people doing really awesome work on helping women specifically get in tune with that and like work with that, with their, you know, natural cycles and things like that, and optimizing, because there are different parts, and I'm not an expert on this at all, but there are different times during your entire, you know, cycle where there's a more productive phase, there's a resting phase, there's, you know, and then there's different things that you can do to support yourself, whether that's through like, you know, nutrition and things like that. But most people don't even know anything. It's really honestly in the last like year that I've even started learning about all of the things that my body can do. Like, and I'm almost 30. So we really do think as a society, like we don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of pressure to suppress that, to not, you know, talk about that with other people, and to not even know about that. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it is, getting back to the point, it is harder as a woman, but that's not just, actually, I don't know if that's a true statement, because there's also there's also a lot of emotional suppression in the culture of men as well. So
I think the most relevant part is understanding that it's challenging for you, because we've come here to have a subjective human experience. So you do have to experience it subjectively as a woman, a Caucasian woman living in Canada. That's how you're experiencing your subjective human experience. And you have to take all those factors into account.
Yes.
But knowing that this is the sand also, that this is only exists in this place of isness. I'm an energetic being. I'm not a black man. I'm only a black man here, you know. And so when I become consumed with certain things that are attributed to black men, I have to remind myself that this is all an illusion, and whatever we stare at, it becomes our reality, because wherever attention goes, energy flows. So if I continue to address, even though I understand that illusion is real for everyone else, if I continue to stare at what they're staring at, then it becomes real for me too. And so reminding myself that I'm an energetic being, and then moving away from that space, that's how I free myself from the emotionally charged attachment that I'll make even to my own race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, clearly our lived realities and experiences are so different, but I really like that point about, like, you know, there's so much attached to who you are in your physical body and location and whatever. How much of that is really true, and how much of that is just like what we believe, what we are taught, and what kind of gets infused into us from a very, very young age. And why does any of that need to be our reality? It doesn't.
I think somebody came up with the ideas and then formed the structures, and people started to stare at these ideas until it became real. And the more that we stare at it, the more real it becomes. And so we've accepted it as true. And so then we start operating in that believed truth. But all it takes is the same order of operations, which is you look at a different reality, one that does not exist yet, and continue to stare at that. And then eventually that will manifest itself in the physical reality. We always have the option to change. That's why I've never liked the saying in America where they say the law is the law, you know, as it
Me
pertains
either.
to. I can't stand it. From day one, I could not stand that, because there's no creation that's greater than the creator. We created the law, and it's shown time and time again, because were the law, there would be equity in the justice system, and there is not, you know.
Yeah.
The law is what we say it is, period.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just like everything else, even our situations, you know, it is what we say it is.
Yeah, this is really getting into the stuff that in The Voice of Knowledge, which is Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements. Yeah, this is getting into that stuff where, so Harry and I talk a lot about, you know, the things that we're talking about right now. And then I read this other book that's like words it completely differently, but the ideas, those universal laws and ideas are exactly the same. And it's always so funny because we'll get on this topic and I'm like, oh yeah, no, like this actually, yeah, it makes sense. So it's all just what we learn, and none of it is, it's only true because we decide and believe that it's true. Would you agree with that?
Most certainly. Most
Yeah.
certainly. Look, using a personal example, you more than anybody else, with us doing business and stuff like that, with the hiccups that we've had, like you see the states that I fall into. And then it's like I get sleep or something like that, and I wake up and I'm like, did I message that to Hannah? Let me let me clarify. I was sleep deprived and other things going on, and I did 13 podcasts that day. And my
Yeah,
bad, you know.
legit.
But
Oh,
that's
and I
because
mean, same on my end. I'll like, you'll say something and it'll trigger me for some reason, and I'll, get all defensive. Like I get defensive about stuff. So we know that.
but that's a
Yeah.
shadow. That's a
Yeah, and
shadow. That's all
that's
that
one of the other
is.
questions that I had written down. Maybe we can kind of like wrap up on this one, but like control issues. Where do those come from, and like what's the root of that? Is that again like going back to the fear thing or the expectations? Like how does control issues like manifest in people?
It depends on the person. But again, we're talking about energies here.
Mm,
Everything is energy. It only collapses in the physical because we need something to look at, our physical
yeah.
eyes, and something to operate in. So ask the question one more time so I can process it one more time.
Okay, where do control issues come from, and how do they manifest?
The fear of not having. The fear of not
Mm-hmm.
having will create control issues. And the fear of not having, see, just the operation of fear, when no matter what the choice is, if we move from the space of fear, we've already lost. And so, in that space of fear, what it's really showing again is that we've lost our way because now we're relying more on the physical world instead of the inner world right here. And so, then we try to control the outside world, again, pointless. It's like trying to grab the wind with one hand, but we try
Yeah,
to.
and even though I know that, yeah, sometimes it's still a problem.
It is because we need
Yeah.
constant reminders, constant the so no matter what how many self-help books you get, no matter how many online programs you join, no matter how much knowledge you have, knowledge got to be changed into wisdom. It got to be converted into wisdom. And we behave, the more wisely we choose, the easier it is for us to choose wisely the next time, because we have to, when it comes down to developing new habits, we have to allow our brain to form new neural pathways. The more
Mm,
that we choose something differently, the stronger these bridges, these new neural pathways become,
yeah.
until eventually, because the mind is always chasing the path of least resistance. So if you are a pessimistic person, then these bridges are so strong that when it comes down to situations, it will
Yeah.
send you straight down that pessimistic path. But if you begin to intentionally choose to live through your values and choose these other neural pathways of optimism and hope and understanding that it doesn't have to look the way you need it to look, you'll still have that experience. And you constantly remind yourself, eventually, these bridges become so strong that now they become the path of least resistance. And now your brain is automatically defaulted to go down that path. When you
Yeah.
move into that space, now you're moving to the space of peace. Peace that surpasses all understanding, because you know that this physical world is always changing. And so now you're not really relying so much on what you see in the
Yeah.
physical, but what you understand to be true within your inner world, and then you operate from that space. And in that peace, you also gain clarity. And with that clarity comes the ability to see much further, expanded awareness. And in that state of expanded awareness, you see more possibilities for your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty hard to be at peace when you always want to control everything around you.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing, the key is knowing that that I will, you will, the Dalai Lama will, every human being will still fall into the state of believing I have to control my physical environment. When the bank account hits negative, oh my goodness, the biggest trigger on the planet for me. When the bank account hit negative or something goes wrong, you catch a flat tire, whatever, something happens, that emotion drives the thoughts, and then you more than likely, probably for a moment, will go into a state of not selfness. How long you stay in that state of not selfness, that's the skill. It's not staying out of the state, because you're going to go back into the state. But how long will you stay in that state? That's where skillfully practicing living through your values, that's where that comes into play. Because that default, that path of least resistance, when you form these new neural pathways, or healthier pathways, that's when that stressor hits, and then you start to push yourself. You know that the impulse reaction is to react with anger, frustration, whatever, but it doesn't feel right to you anymore. And so now your brain, because these new neural pathways are so strong, it doesn't feel right to the brain anymore. And so it goes, wait a minute, should I operate this way? No, I think, no, this over here, let's do this. This is healthier. We feel better afterwards. Let's go this route.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, that's, I think, where I wanted to wrap it up. But since we were talking about values in like a nutshell, if somebody has not, like, they're like, I don't know what my values are, how do I figure that out? What would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to Google.
Use the damn Google.
That's where I started at. So
no,
I start out.
Go ahead.
No, my path is to have a beginner's mind. Right. So I know what a value is, just like I know what a number 2 pencil is. But I also know that there are layers of knowingness, just like there's layers of the Earth's crust. And we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not that we need to know something different. It's that we need to know more of what it is that we know, and understand that we don't know enough, and that we'll never know everything. And so we need to continue to dig deeper. Does that make sense?
I think so. So, okay. If I was like, hey, I need to figure out my values, I would go Google what are core values, and then figure out that, and maybe look at a list of them, and then would I just like kind of go through that and pick out what resonates for me, and then narrow it down.
So my point with that is knowing these principles, because I speak from a place of principles and universal truths. That's where I go space cadet, and it's like, what are you saying? But practically what that looks like for me is adopting beginner's mind. And so I define a thing, such as client asked me many moons ago, how do I forgive? And I know, just like everybody else knows what forgiveness is, right? But we don't know. And so we have to assume that we don't know.
Yes.
And so then
there's a conversation on which podcast episode, but you've talked about this. Actually, I think that was with Leah. I think that was our episode 6, I want to say. Just really go check that out.
Not this one, but the one before this one.
Yeah.
And I spoke on that
episode with Leah Marmula. Yes.
Leah, yeah.
So talking about definitions and the need to define things and actually know what it is that we are talking about, because like you said, if you asked me what forgiveness is, I actually wouldn't be able to tell you.
Exactly.
Say, well, I forgive. Maybe I let it go. Is that what it actually is? Probably not.
Exactly. Because we don't care about knowing, and this is where downfall. Because again, ignorance and freedom can't coexist. We're in a culture where we don't care so much about knowing. We just care about knowing enough.
Yeah.
And that's where we fall short at.
Yeah.
Because that becomes fluid. Words change. We could say the same words, but be reading from different dictionaries. And then now you have two people who are in a relationship who don't realize that we're in a culture of defining words how we see fit at a certain specific time. Now they're using for example, they're using English words to talk to each other, but they have completely separate meanings and don't even realize it.
Yeah, for example, like I feel like we're disconnected, or where there's not a connection between us anymore. And I say that, and then what does that actually mean? What do I mean by that?
Exactly.
In a relationship example, but yeah.
Exactly. And then on top of that, if there's shadows, because most certainly these intimate relationships, they will trigger shadows more than anything else, period, because of proximity. Trauma is an attachment betrayal. You've been betrayed at some point in time, or by several points in time, by people who were close to you. So whenever you're triggered, that means somebody close to you triggered you, or somebody did something that represents something that triggered you in the past that somebody close to you did.
Yeah.
And so understanding that I've been triggered, what shadow am I trying to protect myself right now? Or am I open to really dialogue and understanding what's going on and maybe navigate through the situation?
Yeah. And I've started to do that since since we've been talking about all this for a while. Like there would be a situation where I feel, the word would be triggered by it, but I can tell that I'm just like not reacting in my true self. And I'm making a bigger deal out of it than I would like to. And then I like to ask myself, like, what's causing me to feel this way? Like, what am I really concerned about here? Just trying to like ask myself some questions to dig into that a little bit more. And I don't always get all the way there, but at least it gives me some clarity, and I can like be like, okay, that's why. I can get a little bit closer to it and a little get more aware of where those things are coming from.
You know what? Let me say this while we're on here. Let me plug this in. So the ebook. I'm doing an update on the ebook, and this is germane to what you just asked about, how being aware, especially when it comes down to like relationships and understanding that trauma is an attachment betrayal. And so, what ego protector will come up. So in the ebook, the next update, I'm going to include the persecutor, rescuer, victim shadows. Really going deeper into shadows to help people understand how these shadows show up.
Does everybody have at least one of those?
I would say that it's commonplace, because I can't say everybody for sure, but it seems like everybody that I've met falls into one of these, or we sort of kind of fluctuate between two, So for me, my shadow I identified, as I was doing the learning, is a rescuer shadow in that rescuer triangle. But I move from rescuer to victim every now and again when the trauma is severe enough. When the trigger is big enough, I can revert even all the way to victim phase for a moment. But that's not my default shadow. My default drug of choice, if you were, in the shadow realm, is being a rescuer, and then understanding that me being a rescuer is a form of me responding from a shadow place of my trauma.
And what does that look like? Is that like I have to do everything myself? I need to,
neglect one's own needs, always looking for a fire to put out, always trying to solve someone else's problem, always trying to save somebody at the expense of oneself, always neglecting one's needs. So and we what they do is that these three specific shadows, they attract certain other specific shadows. So for a rescuer shadow, we typically attract victims, because they are in a perpetual state of needing to be saved. Woe is me, I'm horrible, I can't get anything right, I'm an F up. And so we want to come in and save them from that. And also the persecutor, because we understand that the persecutor, which is the ones who's always blaming and attacking other people, it's everybody else's fault, and you never take any real responsibility. We understand that the persecutors are responding from a place of perpetual not selfness, and that they've also been traumatized by somebody who's probably was just as abusive as they are.
Is it possible, because I feel like you talking about that kind of person, that type of person triggers me. Is that a thing?
Yeah, because again, the mind, it tells a little difference between what you imagine and what is actually really physically happening. So if you allow your mind to go, that's what a trigger is. It's a trauma has to have happened in the past first in order for you to be triggered. Otherwise, you're upset. You may be going through a current trauma, but a trigger is related to a previously traumatic event, a reminder of that, And so, just talking about it could essentially like a lot of people, if they hear the word narcissist, which is thrown around loosely now, trigger for them, And so, anything can be a trigger. Hell, a number 2 pencil could be a trigger. A doorknob could be a trigger. There are people who actually have phobias of touching doorknobs. So when it comes down to the mind can make anything a threat.
And you're not like, that's you, whoever is listening, you're normal. You're
not crazy or whatever, quote unquote crazy.
Just want to clarify that.
And that's the thing. The shame is what keeps people from getting healthy, because they don't want to be seen as this defective person, because we all have to fight out of this trance of unworthiness. It looks different from different people, depending on who you are. But this trance of unworthiness, we all have to fight out of it. So in that trance, we believe that no matter how hard we try, no matter what, we'll always fall short some kind of way, that we are inherently wrong. And because we are inherently wrong, all of these bad things just keep on happening and we just can't get right. And we keep on attracting these people who tear us down and this and that. All of that is illusion. All of that
kind of goes back to like the whatever you stare at becomes reality too as well. Right?
Precisely.
Like you just people tend to kind of create these, I don't know if echo chamber is the right word for that, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Then you're on Instagram, which again, I love Instagram. I'm not gonna talk too much about Instagram, since I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to be a little brand person, but you go on Instagram and you see these electrically charged quotes from people who are great at putting words together and making these electrically charged quotes, but they yield no true healing. All it does is people go, yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah, screw them. Let's bar them all. Let's go after, let's tar and feather them all,
Yeah.
And that doesn't solve anything. It just causes more divisiveness because that's a fear response. That's a fear response. And there's nothing to gain from operating out of the space of fear. We all lose when we operate out of fear because we're not operating from our true selves. We're fractured in that space.
Yeah, there's so many spaces on, social media and niches that have really a lot of issues with this fear-based approach to sell and market things. And please be aware of that. We need to have some awareness around that, and it's a problem. Okay, so probably wrap things up here because we're almost at an hour, but I just wanted to recap. So the shadow work book that we were talking about is at becomeanoutlier.com/links. It is at its lowest price it will ever be right now. And it is getting updated. And when you purchase, you always get the new updates of it, which will have even more stuff. So that's the Doing Shadow Work or Choosing to Heal ebook. The course is coming out very, very soon. And then the other books that we talked about, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work on the kind of the mind body.
Becoming supernatural.
Yeah, Becoming Supernatural. And he's got a couple of other books as well. And then Don Miguel Ruiz, The Voice of Knowledge as well. I would recommend on that.
And let me say this real quick on the ebook. On the ebook, and I want to stress this enough because I'm updating that thing real soon. And so understand that if you purchase it right now, you're going to get the updated. You're going to have this version plus the updated version, and the updated version will be more expensive. So it's more of like, it's sort of kind of like you get the book, but you're also getting an investment because every single time, it doesn't matter if I update it 13 times, which I suspect I probably will, that you'll get every single new updated version. And every single time I update it, that price is going up. By the time it get done, it's going to be the price of a textbook. It's going to be in the hundreds somewhere. So you want to get it while it's $22 and just continue to get those updated versions for free. And who knows, maybe you want to invest and sell. I'm not going to be mad at you if you buy 1,000 and then sell it when it becomes like $100, Please, by all means, invest in me. I'm invested in me. I think that I'm a pretty good goddamn investment too. Excuse me. I can't say God and damn on. I said it again.
I can't say that loud. In my household growing up. Heaven forbid. So thanks everybody for watching this or the replay. We would love to have questions and also topics. I do have a couple of topics in mind for next week. I think probably what we'll go into maybe is the whole idea of subconscious programming, because I've been hearing this coming up in different spaces that are not even necessarily relevant to like the mental health space, a lot in like the spiritual and manifestation world and stuff like that. And not to say that there aren't others that are qualified to teach that, but I think we have the most qualified person right here. So I want to talk about that and some other what?
Did you just call me the most qualified person?
Yeah.
Can I? Look, I'm accepting compliments this year. I'm reading my self-acceptance. I'm getting my skill level up. So I appreciate that. I'm acknowledging it's uncomfortable as hell, but Still uncomfortable,
Well,
but
I mean,
again, new neural pathways. I
as a
accept it. Thank you.
traumatologist, someone who is diving really deep into shadow work, which we'll keep talking more about, like what it actually is, because I think that a lot of people don't really know. I didn't really know. I heard it again, kind of as that buzzword in the the spiritual sort of woo community.
ACEs.
Yeah.
ACEs, real quick. If you hear people talk about childhood trauma, ACEs, anything like that, again, that's shadow work. Carl Jung is based off of Carl Jung's work in Freud. And so Carl Jung, the quote is, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's all shadow work. So anytime you hear about ACEs and people talking about like dealing with your childhood trauma, that involves shadow work. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you don't need to have like some major trauma to benefit from this at all. I think we all have things like I think we have a quote on our Instagram that was from a podcast. Is like, nobody leaves childhood unscathed. Like, no matter how good your childhood was, how great your parents are, there are still things that happen throughout your life that like affect you and affect your ability to do things, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're raising a family and trying to be a good parent or whatever. Like there's things that we aren't really totally aware of. So I think when you're starting to like hit those blocks or feel like things just aren't, like you're like, I just can't get this to work, or I can't move forward or whatever, then that's really when we need to start looking at the deeper things going on. Deeper shit.
Yeah. And lastly, I'll say that there's a lot of people out there that's talking. There are many people that can imitate, but very few that can originate. And you got to understand where, when you're talking to somebody who's authentic versus not, because there's a whole lot of people that's calling themselves life coaches or whatever and going out there and
shadow workers, light workers,
all of that, and what they did was they wrote a book over a weekend, and then now they're selling the program because they have the backing, the finances to do advertisements, all this other stuff, like corporate people I'm talking about. Well, not corporate America, but what is it called? Industry folk, people that call themselves industry folk, not I love corporate. Hey, corporate America, y'all call me up. I mean, I know y'all be writing some fat checks, so please, I don't have anything against corporate America, but the industry folk, y'all could kick rocks. But anyway, you got to know what's real and what's not, so listen to the real.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. This isn't really stuff that you want to be just taking advice from anybody on, I would guess. When you're dealing with, with subconscious, whether we want to call it subconscious reprogramming, shadow work, trauma work, that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful for some people. And like I said, we would love to hear what questions. We want you to ask the question. Again, I'll probably run out of questions, but so, probably not. My mind is like constantly going. So
this is why this works.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks again, everyone. And join our Facebook groups. Well, we'll put some links in the comments and stuff here.
4 p.m. Central Standard Time, Fridays, until it's not 4 p.m. But for the time being, it's 4 p.m. Central Standard Time.
The next one, I'm sure the first 10 minutes will go a little bit smoother than today.
Oh yeah, way smoother.
Experimenting. We gotta just do it. So okay. Well, thanks for your time, Harry, and we will we'll see you on next week's episode of Ask the Question.
Later.
Bye.